In today's video, I'm going to be critiquing a short film written and directed by one of my subscribers. Her name is Leyland Fallis. She's made a couple short films before, and she very kindly dropped a comment in one of my videos saying that she would be curious to see my opinion on other short films out there. And she offered up very generously that I can critique one of hers. So I'm going to be diving into her latest video today. It is called The Noise, a short film about ADHD, and it's a deeply personal film shot entirely on an iPhone. I'm going to start off by giving my general impressions on the film, and then I'm going to do a deep dive scene by scene and discuss from an editor's perspective what worked and what could possibly be improved. Even though in this video I'm talking specifically about Leyland's film, it's going to be applicable to any other filmmaker out there because I'm going to be giving some actionable tips on what could improve a short film. Again, all from the editor's perspective. So let's dive into it. So let's begin with my general impressions on the film, and I'm going to break this down into four main categories: the story, the cinematography, the sound, and the pacing. So let's begin with the story. The film follows a day in the life of this young woman who is suffering from ADHD and an overwhelming sensory input. Every sound that she hears is just really loud and accentuated, hence the title, The Noise. It's a simple film, it's a simple story setup, but it is very effective and I liked it a lot. And it's the perfect kind of story that lends itself to low budget filmmaking. You got one lead actress and that's kind of it. There is a central conflict that this film has, which is great. She struggles from ADHD, but she does have access to medication that can ease the symptoms. However, the dilemma is that we get the sense that she is trying to resist taking the medication. I think that's a very strong conflict to have in a short film, and a lot of short films go wrong here. They don't include enough conflict. My one suggestion, and we'll talk about it later, but I think it's established a little bit late in the film, and there's opportunity to bring that in a little bit clearer from the beginning. Also, quick shout out to the actress. I thought she was fantastic. She has a lot to do. It's all in her eyes and it's all in her face. She doesn't have one word of dialogue, but I could follow what was going on with her every step of the way, and that is very hard to do. So kudos there. All right, now let's jump into the cinematography. I love that this film was shot on an iPhone. It's a perfect testament of like how you don't need a lot of equipment to make a good film. If you look at the credits, it was Leyland who shot it and edited it, and there was no other crew outside of the actress. So there are no more excuses. You can go out there and you can make a film with just your iPhone, and films like this prove that. On top of that, it looks really good. But something that was really noticeable here was that not only do the shots look really good, but they're framed very intentionally. Like the use of composition was really strong, and the use of camera movement and camera angles was really strong too. There are some very inventive shots here that really boost the production value. So even though it was just shot with an iPhone, it was filmed in an interesting and dynamic way, and that is exactly how you maximize your minimal equipment. I also noticed that the close-ups in this film were especially soft and cinematic, and I'm not entirely sure how this look was achieved, but I have two possible ideas or a combination of both. I think it was either an external iPhone lens that Leyland had purchased and put on the iPhone. I know companies like Moment sell these types of iPhone external lenses that will boost the quality and the look of the film, but she also may have used the cinematic mode that the iPhone has. iPhone has a very powerful cinematic mode option that if you flip it on, it's gonna keep the main subject of the frame in focus, and it's gonna have this light blur effect on the rest of it. And it just gives this kind of nice soft glow that you would see in an actual cinema camera. So Leyland, if you're watching this, please comment down below, did you use either an external lens or the cinematic mode? Because I thought your close-ups were great, and it would be helpful for any other filmmaker out there to know how you achieved that look. The one issue I did see with the cinematography kind of comes down to one of the limitations of the iPhone, and that is that iPhones aren't very strong in low light scenarios. So there's a scene where the main character is in her bedroom at night, and you can tell that the quality of the film is a little less sharp. So if you do plan to shoot with an iPhone in low light scenarios, I would highly recommend investing in an external light kit. You don't need to get anything super fancy. There are some relatively affordable kits that you can find on Amazon. Just type in lighting kits on Amazon and something will come up. I might even put a link to some in the description so that you can take a look. But yes, if you're going to shoot with an iPhone in a low light scenario, definitely invest in some lighting because it's going to help sharpen your image. Now let's move on to the audio. And I honestly think this was one of the strongest parts of the film. I've said on the channel before that one of the biggest sinkers of a film is bad audio quality. And if you look at the credits of this film, there does not seem to be any designated audio professional on this film. There's no sound recordist, there's no re-recording mixer or anything. So I think Leyland did something very smart here. I don't know if this is entirely the case, but I'm assuming there might not have been the budget to hire a professional sound recordist. And so in order to get around that, there was no dialogue in this film. So essentially there was no need for an on-set recordist. So my guess is that all these sounds were either recorded later or downloaded from online copyright-free libraries. So that's a pro tip. If you don't have the budget to hire a sound recordist or an audio professional, then try to avoid using dialogue in your film. It'll save you the headache of having to re-record dialogue later in a process called ADR, and you can just shoot with no audio person and do all of the sounds later by yourself. It is a huge money saver, but also it'll allow you to make sure that you get good audio despite your lower budget. And what was cool about this sound design is that it was very intentional. This film is called The Noise, so it's all about the noise that this protagonist who suffers from ADHD hears. So everyday regular sounds are just heightened in this movie. So the sounds of her grabbing a water bottle, for example, the water bottle sounds a lot more heightened than it would in real life. Take a listen to how the water bottle sounds in this film. So there's very intentional sound design here, and it really elevates this film and it makes it feel very unique and very different. And it's a very effective way of placing the audience in the mindset of this character. There is, in my opinion, some room for clarity in terms of when is the sound supposed to be stylized and then when is it supposed to sound normal. I didn't feel like that was entirely consistent throughout the film, but we're going to talk a bit more about that in my later deep dive. Now we're going to move on to the pacing of the film. Pacing is my jam. Pacing is everything that editors do, so I do keep a keen eye on that, and I think this film is very well paced. It's not a long movie, clocks in at just above 8 minutes, and every scene serves the story, every scene moves the story forward, and there's not much wasted time. There are some scenes where I think you could trim down a little bit, and we're going to talk about that, but overall, it moved well, told the story efficiently, and I just had a great time watching it. So huge congratulations to Leyland on making this film. I really hope you make a lot more in the future because there's so much talent here. And now let's dive into the nitty-gritty of what I think from my editor brain could potentially be improved, and also which specific things worked really well. So let's get into it. We're entering what I call the dungeon. Right here, I'm gonna stop already. A very effective opening. Starting off black screen, but hearing the sound coming in, the sounds are loud, they're blaring, and then we cut directly into this close-up on her eyes. And this was a good example of how I was talking about the good acting in here, because her eyes are very expressive. We can tell there's some discomfort, there's some tension here, and so we automatically know that the loud noises are likely bothering her. So it's a very effective start. So this sequence here where she looks at the birds, I think you can cut away from her eyes quicker. We linger on her eyes a little bit too long. Once she looks to the left, immediately cut to the birds. Then once we cut back to her eyes, have her immediately look to the right and then cut quickly to the pond. It's just gonna tighten the pacing a little bit. When we linger on our eyes too long, it kind of puts a blanket on everything. And then I think this faster pace is going to help accentuate the fact that she's feeling a little bit anxious in this moment. When we're anxious, we tend to look around quite quickly. It's kind of that darting eyes thing. So cutting quicker is going to tell that portion of the story a little bit stronger and make it all a little bit tighter. I love the shot, the pan up shot up to the trees. It has this feeling of like this vertigo feeling almost. It's a little discombobulating. It's a little bit disorienting. And I just think it's a really, really, really cool shot. So I wanted to shout that out. The hand coming up, coming into frame and then back down, that feels a little bit random. I don't exactly know why she's doing that, and it doesn't happen later in the film, so I would honestly just cut it. Just go from the pan up to the trees, cut down to this wide shot once her hand is down. Also, this wide shot, beautiful shot. So right here, this is a great example on how composition can strengthen your cinematography. So even though this is shot with an iPhone, this shot is so beautiful because every area of the frame is being utilized. There's no wasted space. There's the tree trunk here. There's these gorgeous autumn trees over here. There's the bridge in the back. She's in the forefront. It's just every element works. You don't need fancy equipment to have good composition. Composition is free. So even if you're working with minimal equipment, always try to get interesting shots like these where your frame is being utilized in its entirety. I do think, though, that from a sound design perspective, there's something to consider with these wide shots. In the shots where we're far away from the protagonist, it could be interesting if the sound design was a lot quieter. So the way that everybody hears it in day-to-day life. So when you're far away from her, the sounds are normal. They don't sound jarring. They don't sound overly stimulated. But once we cut in close on her in her close-ups, that's when the sounds get really loud and really heightened. I think that can just help really nail in the fact that she's the only person hearing the sounds this way. Okay, so that sequence there. Let's start with when she grabs the water bottle and puts it back down. So right there, it's not entirely clear why she's putting the water bottle down. We realize later that that's because she has the idea to like maybe take her pills, but without seeing her face, it's hard to know that. So what would make this cut a little more effective would be if you went from her grabbing the water bottle to a close-up of her face where she has this moment of, actually, maybe let me take my pills. So she's kind of, it could be a look, something super subtle, but just something in her face that lets us know that there's a change of thought. And so now when we see her put the water bottle back down, we know why. Okay, so this shot with the pills, I love the sound design here. The way the music is swelling makes it feel like these pills are like a symbol of freedom almost. And then if you listen closely, you'll hear the sound of seagulls. Seagulls are a motif that appear later on in the film as well. So I love that it's introduced here early on. So here I do really get the sense I think you're trying to convey that these pills are a way out for her. Here's where I think we can bring in the conflict of the film a little bit earlier. We see her looking at these pills, and then we see her put the pills back down. But we don't really feel this pull that she has towards the pills. I think we really need to see her fighting to not take these pills right now. Whereas the way it plays, we don't get that much. So a simple way to adjust that would be if you added a digital push-in on her face and on the pills. And then when she decides to put the pills in her pocket, we know that she's fighting the urge. It also just makes us sympathize with her. If we understand her struggle early on, it just makes us root for her from the get-go even quicker. It establishes an emotional connection. We understand what her core emotional conflict is going to be in the film, and it just attaches the audience to this protagonist like that. So this is the first time that I heard it. It's a sound design choice that appears throughout the film. But if you listen, you can hear like almost like a loud airport type sound, like this megaphone talking. It's a great sound design choice to get us in her headspace of like, oh my God, everything is just sounding so chaotic. But because it is also chaotic, that's why I do think I would consider when we're on the wide shots of her, let's get rid of those chaotic sounds, give the audience room to breathe, and once we're in on her, that's when the sounds get really crazy. So right there, I'm not sure why she's sipping the water bottle. Nothing, it's not really consequential to the story. Nothing really happens because she drank the water. So I don't think it's necessary. I would just consider cutting her drinking the water bottle and go straight from her putting the pills into her pocket to grabbing her phone. Again, it just keeps the story moving a little bit quicker. Right here, that cut from the phone to the wide shot is a little bit jarring. And the reason why it's jarring is because this fast motion on the map of the phone, like when she starts the directions, the map kind of spins out quickly and we cut immediately to the very still wide shot. To make this smoother, just sit on the close-up of the iPhone until the map has settled and then cut to the wide shot. You rarely want to cut from fast motion to no motion. That makes things very jarring, unless of course that's what you're going for. All right, very cool. I love how the music pre-laps in and then the music drop is perfectly in sync with this next shot. And the loud music fits the tone of this next scene perfectly because as you're about to see, this next scene is all about chaos and how her traveling home is a very overwhelming activity. Beginning of that scene, I think, works really well. On an editing basis, I think it could be trimmed up just a touch. I stopped it right here because here there's a strange audio effect that seems to be applied to the music. Take a listen. Right there. It's a very significant shift, and I'm not entirely sure on why that happens. There are several ideas that I had when I was watching this, like several possibilities on why that choice might have been made. And it kind of comes down to the headphones, weirdly. Because here we see her kind of adjusting her headphones, I wonder if the muffling sound effect is because she's trying to block out the noise with her headphones. So she puts the headphones in, and when she does, everything sounds a bit more muffled, like there's a blanket over it. I think that's a strong choice, and that's a strong idea, especially because we see the headphones clearly in this scene. And in film in general, when you include a prop, you want it to serve a storytelling function. So I think the headphones absolutely should tell an element of the story. And because she does hear sounds very sensitively, as an audience member, I'm interested to know what kind of music soothes her. How does the music sound to her? Does she listen to very mellow music to try to drown out all this craziness? Does she not listen to music at all? Does she just put headphones in? These are all questions that are not entirely answered the way it is now. So for example, let's say she listens to classical music to relax. Then in this case, I would have her adjust the headphones and I would start bringing in the music that she's listening to and hearing how it's trying to drown out the loud, traveling, and chaotic music that we already have. See how that fights with it and how much it improves it. Does it improve it a lot? Does it not? Is it a little bit better, but not much better, and she can still hear the craziness and it's still very difficult for her? All of these things are storytelling moments that can increase the conflict in this scene, and it could add a bit more of an extra storytelling layer that we're not quite getting here. Okay, so that whole sequence when she's sitting by the window, I think that can be trimmed quite significantly. We sit on there for a long time and I just don't think it's needed. So we can probably cut that timing in half. And then once she gets up, let's just cut directly to the exterior of the bus. We don't need to linger in on the window. We always want to stay with the protagonist. So once she gets up, we move right along with her. This shot out here, it's not the strongest shot in the film. I think you can just cut it. We don't need to see her leaving the station. We can just cut straight from her getting up from the bus to this next shot, which is a lot cooler and a lot stronger. Don't need that middle ground shot. So this exterior sequence is visually stunning. I love the kind of disorienting effect that it has. I entirely get that this is a chaotic experience for her. I do think it could be trimmed up a little bit, similarly to the bus. Just you can get through it a little bit quicker. I think the cuts between shots can get quicker and quicker as the scene goes to just make it feel like this unstoppable, accelerating momentum that's gaining in on her. But the rest here, this ramp out is just perfect. This corridor shot is really cool. I love hearing the footsteps get louder and louder as she approaches the camera. I will, however, say I don't think it's entirely necessary. It's a very cool shot, but outside of that, it doesn't accomplish much from a storytelling perspective. All this shot tells us is that she's arrived home, and that's going to be accomplished in the next sequence anyway. So to be perfectly honest, even though it is a very cool shot, I would recommend eliminating it, because in general, you just want everything to serve the story, and this doesn't deliver anything new. So I'll just go straight from the cut to black to the shower head. And maybe over black, we start hearing the loud water droplets, and then we come in on the shower head here. I love that camera pull back as she whips her hair. I think it's just a very fun, cool camera movement. I would add a little whoosh sound effect so that as the camera pulls back and she flips her hair, we hear like a whoosh type sound. Whenever you have really fun, cool, rapid movement like this, I think not having any sound to accompany it just makes it feel a little bit empty. So here's an example of where the sound design is a little bit inconsistent, because we've established that everything sounds really loud to her, but this hairdryer, which is arguably the thing that would create the most sound, it just sounds very normal. It sounds the way a hairdryer sounds. So I'm not entirely sure why this isn't completely accentuated and over the top the way some of the other sounds have been. I think this should be just real chaos blaring onto her head. And it just also would make us feel for her just even more, like, man, like she has to dry her hair, but she has to deal with this droning, incessant sound. That must be maddening. So I think it's an opportunity to make us connect with her even more, and having it sound just like a regular hair dryer doesn't quite accomplish that. It's also a very long shot. I would cut out of it a little bit sooner. So here, where she shakes her head and she leaves, this was the first time in the film that I really understood that she's battling this decision of whether or not to take the pills, which is why I was suggesting bring this conflict in earlier in that opening scene. And similarly, like I suggested for the opening scene, I think there could be a bit more of a struggle here. Here, she just kind of shakes her head pretty quickly. I would find it interesting if we had at least one more cutaway to the pills before she shook her head. So she looks at the pills, we see the pills, maybe we add that same digital push in that we did in the first scene, and then we come back on her, and then she decides to shake her head. Just to really make us see that her choosing to say no to the pills is an active struggle. It is a difficult decision to make. So we just want to see that struggle a little bit more, and I think just one simple cutaway with a push-in can accomplish that. Similar note about the hairdryer here, like the sound, like the bed springs, like when she sits on the bed, that should be extremely loud. Right now, it sounds like regular bed springs. And I would argue this must be the loudest the sound design has been in the film, because she's already kind of turned down the pills twice now. So here, the sounds have to be so over the top and so unbearable that she will have no choice but to take the pills, which, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, she takes the pills. And so I think because she does end up taking the pills here, this sound design has to be maddening. It has to be so heightened to the point where no matter how much willpower you have, you cannot resist the temptation for some kind of relief. Here, I like how the walla, the airport walla, gets really, really loud. So this is in line with my note of like, okay, this should be unbearable. It comes in a little bit aggressively. It's like a hard cut in. I would smooth that out. So I'd create a little bit of an audio ramp in so it's not such an aggressive hard cut. So it's gonna sound like this. So it's like a slow progressive ramp up. So it's not such an aggressive hard cut. Small little nitpicky editing notes, but just keep everything smooth. Don't make it jarring for the audience. Great. I love that she's smothering herself with the pillow. She's really trying to suppress the sound. She's trying to use a method that's not taking the pills. Here, when she puts the pillow over her head, I think sound design wise, it would be great to hear how that affects the sounds, and potentially it makes it worse, right? So she tries to smother it, but in the process of doing so, it gets distorted and just crazy on another level. And so this makes her be like, okay, you know what? We have to take the pills. Love the music here. I like it. But again, her footsteps should be so loud. Like it should sound like stomping. Amazing. I love that transition cut. It's such a smart cut, and so effective too. Like we immediately get this sense of like, okay, now she took the pill, she's going to feel better. I love the music here. Here's where the sound of the seagulls pays off. Makes it quite an emotional moment. I loved it. Here, this punch in, I would rather just stay on the wide shot of her when she rolls over. This is the moment she feels at peace. So let's minimize the cutting. Everything's quiet. Everything's calm. No need to cut it closer. That alarm clock coming in really works. It kind of jolts us back to reality. But here, I don't hear that like loud airport kind of walla sound. I feel like that should be present here. She's out of her calm state. The pills has worn off. So chaos has to come rushing back from the moment she wakes up. And now we have the airport walla back here. We have it here, so I'm not sure why it wasn't in that opening shot. Keep it consistent, keep it in the opening shot, and have it here. Very cool shot. I love this. Tight in on her, almost creates like some kind of a claustrophobic feeling, like she's trapped by this condition. So I think this really works nicely. That toothbrush, make it louder. Great. So right here, when she wipes her mouth and she walks off out of frame, I would have her turn to the pills one more time. The first time I watched this, I couldn't tell that the pills were stashed there. It wasn't quite obvious to me. So just have her turn around, look at the pills one more time, maybe have one more close-up of the pills so that the audience can tell that they're there, and then she walks off. This push-in's great, very cinematic. Love having the seagull sound effect coming in. And because we're moving in closer on it, it's like, it's this tempting force. So this works very well. Yeah, and I love the abruptness of that final shot. Again, throughout this whole film, her conflict has been, she's been trying to resist these pills. And so here, like we think, oh, maybe she overcome it. Maybe she's been able to leave the pills. But then seeing her grab them is just kind of this moment of like, you know what? This is just reality. You know, you sometimes do need something to help ease these symptoms. And so this is a very honest look at dealing with ADHD. And it's kind of a cool final shot to end on. So that takes us to the end of the film. Man, I loved it. I really, really, really like this movie, truly. I know I went in and I had a bunch of little like nitpicky notes, but that's just, you know, me putting on my editor's hat. But I do think overall this is a stunning piece of work. It's a very personal story. The acting's really strong. The cinematography is beautiful throughout. Yes, there's the one issue with the low light scene, but that's, you know, pretty inconsequential. And the fact that you filmed it with an iPhone just goes to show to anybody out there, you can make a great looking movie with just an iPhone. You do not need a whole crew. You do not need a lot of equipment. All you need is a good idea, a good story, and the willingness to go out and do it, which clearly you have. And so I want to give you huge props on making that happen. I hope this was kind of helpful in getting a sense of like, you know, what do editors look for when they go through a cut? How would they change a scene? Take what I say with a grain of salt. You know, these are just my opinions. This is how I would approach a re-edit of the scene. Every editor would have a different approach. So take what's helpful and then by all means just completely dismiss the rest. But I can't wait to see what else you work on. You have a real talent, not only from an execution standpoint, how you actually captured the film, but from a storytelling standpoint, you made a lot work with little, and it's just gonna keep growing from here. But honestly, thank you so much for allowing me to review this film on this channel. It was a joy to watch and it was a joy to do. If anybody watching liked this type of video and you have a short film that you would like me to critique or review, by all means, let me know in the comments. I would love to do this again. And if anything was helpful, please be sure to let me know. If anything was confusing, if you have questions, reach out in the comments. I will absolutely respond to each and every one of you. And as always, thank you for watching and please consider subscribing and I'll see you in the next video.